Have you ever been stabbed in the back by someone you valued the most? Someone you forgave and showed mercy to over and over again? Every time they struck you, you chose to remain just and mature, but they took it as a victory. Because human history has written a cruel rule countless times. Your justice only whets the appetite of the predator. 16th century France. While the country was torn apart by religious wars, blood and intrigue, a young king sat on the throne, Henry III. He was intelligent, fond of art, and most importantly, a soft-hearted monarch who always chose justice and forgiveness toward his subjects and enemies. But there was one thing he forgot. You cannot play the lamb at a table of wolves. While King Henry was busy making plans of mercy in the corridors of his palace, a voice rising from the dark rooms of Florence a century ago was watching his softness. Niccolò Machiavelli whispers from his grave, "Excessive mercy is perceived by rivals not as justice, but as weakness." Henry was about to learn what this meant in a very bloody way.
Machiavelli was right. Being too good in a brutal world is giving your enemies a map showing exactly where to strike you. King Henry thought that by forgiving his enemies he would win their respect. In reality, he was only drying the wood under his own throne.
Now I am taking you to the ultimate mercy trap in history, to the foggy, gunpowder-scented streets of Paris, to the palace of Henry III. We turn back time to watch how power can be an illusion, and how a king breeds his own executioner with his own hands.
King Henry's greatest enemy was Henry de Guise, the Duke of Guise, a charismatic Catholic leader loved by the public. Guise was undermining the king's authority every day, mocking him and building secret armies to seize the throne. Yet Henry, wanting to prevent a civil war, forgave Guise every single time and granted him new titles.
Right here, Machiavelli crashes against the palace walls. Dramatically crush your enemy, or do not touch them at all. An enemy punished halfway will always seek revenge. Instead of destroying Guise, Henry approached him with justice. The Duke, however, recorded this justice as the king's fear and weakness.
By the time the calendar hit 1588, the Duke of Guise, emboldened by the king's softness, incited the people of Paris to revolt. On that day, known as the Day of the Barricades, King Henry was forced to flee his own capital in secret. Guise had driven the king out of his own home, because an enemy shown too much mercy will one day evict the host.
Despite the massive betrayal he suffered, King Henry still did not want to shed blood. He invited the Duke of Guise to the assembly of nobles at the Château de Blois. He even granted him the highest military title of the state. Henry extended this as a hand of peace and justice.
The Duke of Guise was completely relaxed as he entered the Château de Blois. When his friends warned him, saying, "The king might kill you, do not go," he laughed and replied, "The king would never dare. He is too cowardly and merciful." See that? Machiavelli was right once again. Henry's mercy was a badge of cowardice in his enemy's eyes. The morning of December the 23rd, 1588. A cold and dark room in the Château de Blois. King Henry sat on his bed, finally accepting the terrifying truth he had been contemplating for months. None of the mercy he had shown had worked. Before the Duke could finish him off completely, He had to break this chain. The soft king was turning into a monster that morning. The Duke of Guise was summoned to the king's bedchamber. The moment he stepped through the door, the king's elite personal guards, the 45, rushed out from the dark corners and ambushed him. As the Duke collapsed under dagger strikes, Henry emerged from behind the curtains, looked down at the lifeless body, and whispered, "My God, he looks even grander in death than in life." Henry had finally destroyed his enemy, but he was far too late. Machiavelli says, injuries should be done all at once, so that being tasted less, they offend less. Because Henry did at the very end what he should have done at the very beginning, this assassination would not save him. Instead, it turned him into a tyrant in the eyes of his people. Only months after Guise's death, the king's belated justice drove the Catholic world into a frenzy. In 1589, a fanatical monk named Jacques Clement gained an audience with King Henry. Claiming he had a secret letter to deliver, he drew a hidden dagger from his robes and plunged it into the king's abdomen. Henry died as a victim of the very hatred he had nurtured through excessive mercy. Let us step away from that historical chateau now and hold the mirror directly to your face. The desperation of Henry III in that dark room of Blois, isn't it the exact same desperation you experience every single day in your own life, your workplace, and your relationships? Look around you. Just like Henry III, aren't there dukes of Guise in your life whom you constantly forgive and allow to cross your boundaries? You treat them with maturity and justice, but what do they say behind your back? They are too soft. I can get away with anything. The system always tells you to be the polite, the forgiving, and the submissive side. But Machiavelli's cold reality works flawlessly in the modern world too. When you remain silent, people do not celebrate your justice. They celebrate your weakness and surrender. Humans are raw. Unless they see power, they will never respect justice. Henry III made his mercy a shield, but that shield became his grave. When you make your mercy a shield, you are merely showing people the softest spot to strike you. Think of a friend or a partner. When they made a mistake, you called it human nature and forgave them. They did it again. You stayed silent. When they struck you at your most vulnerable spot on the third time, you were shocked. Why are you shocked? You were the one feeding your executioner with your own hands, just like Henry III. Machiavelli's philosophy is not cruelty. It is simply the dark map of human psychology. For a person to respect you, they must know your potential to cause pain. If there is no fear, your mercy holds absolutely no value. If you want to build your own kingdom in this life, you cannot hide behind the curtains and go mad at the very end like Henry I. You must show that Machiavellian coldness to the first person who crosses your boundary, so no one mistakes your justice for weakness. You are realizing it now, aren't you? All the disappointments you've experienced, all the times people took you for a fool. It was all the work of your excessive mercy and your naive faith in justice. You were undervalued because you sold your mercy too cheaply. While the modern world promises you rules and universal acceptance, those savage 16th century daggers are still turning in the background.
No one will talk about how just of a person you were. They will only remember how strong you stood.
Machiavelli and Henry III. One wrote the theory, the other paid with his life. Both arrive at the exact same conclusion. Excessive mercy is treason. First and foremost, it is treason to your own mind and soul.
Would you really be willing to look at your life today and realize which hidden enemy is currently being emboldened by the excessive mercy you've shown just to be a good and just person? Or are you waiting for the executioner you fed with your own hands to finally draw the dagger behind your back? Let's talk about those stories of betrayal in the comments below.